Hey, so each week I recap what we learned that last week. Well, I had something come up that from a parent that I thought, well, this is perfect for the recap. But last week we went over the gifts and strengths checklist of the students and also interest. So let me show you what came up this week that I was like, this is so perfect to share. So I use Canva, but I pay for Canva. Everybody knows me. I don't normally pay for anything. Pretty cheap on that end, but I do pay for Canva because I didn't want kids to pick pictures and then it says no, not available. So I felt bad. So I went ahead and did purchase an add-on to Canva or whatever you call it. But this is where I do a lot of project work. Speaking of going by their interests, digital, it's mostly digital. It's usually colorful. And what I like, and this is some of my work, of course, for promoting my business, but this is a lot of their work too. And I can tell you it's about half their work, half my work in here. But what I like about Canva too is guess what they've added? It's so cool. Hold on. They've added embedding. So you can embed from all of these different sites. So it's really increasing their project work that they're doing. So, and taking them to different outlets of media. So I'm just having a heyday with this now. And they are too. So know that's now available on Canva because I'm about to show you the example of how I used it this week and last week. So it's a boy who only has limited interest. I got to make sure I did his, like many of my kids, I do a interest map with them, right? This one, she was kind of limited on her interest, to be honest with you. But they have definite interests that they go by that you have to follow for teaching them. Hold on. So I don't know why. So one of his interests is drawing. So we read this past. Okay. So let me just say, when I go over reading and research, it's you model first until they become fluent at that age. So, but we have a lot of listening comprehension, and I'm teaching a lot of comprehension tools. But anyway, that's leading to what I'm about to say about project work. So I'm reading this to him, and we learned about Enchanted Drawing. I don't know if y'all ever heard about it. You might want to look it up, but we learned about Enchanted Drawing, and so he made his own. And let me show you what his looks like real fast. After we read, he made this. So it's the cat popping out of the screen, right? Of course, the YouTube embed let me put it on here. So it's like he's taking, just like the Enchanted Drawing in the early 1900s that we read about. It's coming to life from a drawing. So anyway, that's what he did. He made that one. And he also, from another passage we read, I used his gifts and strengths and interest of drawing here. He's very gifted, I thought, in his drawing. But also, he also, in this next one, he really expressed the concept of magic a good bit. So let me share this next one that he made. And I share it with the parents too, by the way, and they get really happy that I'm going based off their child's interest and strengths to teach this comprehension to them. So he definitely knows all about vaudeville now. I don't know if y'all know about vaudeville. Again, just like the Enchanted Drawing, you might want to go Google it yourself. But actually, we attached a video on what vaudeville is. it no longer exists. But so he made this talking about the magic of the magic acts of vaudeville, of the person disappearing. And he really used a lot of words explaining. But remember, this is coming from a passage that we had read talking about the magic of vaudeville. And here's the video to learn more about vaudeville. And that's another YouTube embed from Canva. So anyway, do you think he's interested now in picking out other passages to read with me of his interest? Heck yeah, he is, because he knows we're going to turn around and use his gift of drawing, and actually not even just drawing. He's good with technical things, like him pulling the cat out of the thing. That's all his doing, right? So he's real good with the technical things. And so you better believe he wants me to read something. Remember, he's not at this fluency level, so I'm modeling comprehension skills. You better believe he wants to go to a passage next. He's going to do it of choice. Maybe he does this one. Maybe he makes another thing on Canva about shading with lines or something. I don't know which ones he's going to pick, honestly. But anyway, that's my extension of last week's talking about using their gifts and strengths and interests to help them learn. Well, today we're going to go over anger and shame. So if you get my Albert program right now within this first 3.5 years, most likely you're doing it for doing a case study for me and or referral or reference. What else? And that's about it. So it's not called the anger shame checklist. I just call it that, but it's the learning uniquenesses checklist, because the emotions of anger and shame affect the way that you learn everything in life, basically. But so again, I attached Rebrandly, so you know that you're going to, Laura, I gotta get your email and give you this. So so you know that you're going to do a Rebrandly for that specific child's learning uniqueness checklist, because it's got to be now then workable. Okay. And remember, if you were to do it the other way, from it just being sent by me, I just see the final product, it's done. We don't want that. So you're going to do it in Rebrandly. Now, here's what your screening looks like. You fill it all out, but I'm going to have to go open it in Google Drive, because I'm not obviously going to be filling this all out right now. So let me go. This is what I get to see on my end. Looking for screen 2. Here it is. Okay, so my end, we don't have to fill anything out. We just get to scroll through. Okay, so you do the student's name. And then I, just like the gifts and strengths and interests checklist, I give an explanation of why it's important to know about the emotions of anger and shame. It's to have them at the goal of being at a neutral state of calm and peace when learning. So it's to recognize when they're feeling anger and when they're feeling shame when you're teaching them. And it's not to keep on teaching them when they're showing you that they're experiencing these emotions of anger, shame. So something is either triggering the anger and shame present with what they're learning, or something in the past that's happened to them where they have felt anger and shame with the learning. But again, the whole purpose of this is to know if they have pre-existing anger and shame coming into working with you. Now, about having had done about 85 of these in this format, I had a different format before, so it goes over 85. But anyway, in this format, having done 85 of them, most of my students marked anger and anger. The older they get, the more that I see the shame has increased, that it's marked on this checklist. The goal is to get them at a neutral state of calm and peace, so they're not So they're bypassing that feeling, that emotion of anger and shame, and then they're able to learn. But again, knowing that they have anger and shame always helps, because you'll be looking at these characteristics that we're going through today. Attributes, not characters. Attributes that we're going through today. Let's see, with that being said, we don't want their mental and emotional body to take over their learning. We want their etheric, which is the state of being in present moment, as being in calm and peace and harmony for learning. Okay. So actually this one shows it all. This it's a guy in Europe, and I had his name, but I have dyslexia, so so his name's gone from me, but really famous. Starts with the F, I think. But anyway, I can get it for you if you need. But anyway, I love it how he looks at the and I'm not thinking of it right now for some reason, maybe because it's Friday. But anyway, he I get his information to you. But he looks at the sympathetic state and what is affected. What the down goes down is alpha waves. What goes up is beta waves. The sympathetic state is anger, by the way. Okay, it's the fight, and flee. The mental force goes down, the cognition goes down, the limbic system goes up, and that specifically everything is now going to be perceived with anger, again, in the sympathetic state. Memory goes down. Of course, physiologically, you'll have things see that you have to look for in students. Like this says about their cardiovascular system going up, so you can maybe have sweaty palms, eyes dilated, they're starting to turn red. Okay, so that is what you look for. Heart rate goes up, respiratory, their breathing might have trouble with breath, their blood pressure goes up. So this is anger. So just think about all I said about, especially their mental focus goes down, their cognition goes down, their memory goes down. Not good, guys, right? You're not going to be learning in this state. Now, I, as an individual, did not spend much time in this state. I was not in a sympathetic state. I didn't even recognize the anger at all. I didn't believe anger existed inside my body. But the emotion of anger is there for pretty much everybody, especially if you have a learning difference, right? But anyway, so the parasympathetic is where I spent most of my time as a young child and learning before, and that's shame. Parasympathetic is shame. So it's the shutdown, it's the freeze, okay? So alpha waves go up, beta waves go down, mental focus goes up, cognition goes up, limbic system goes down. See, that's working in the complete emotional state. That's where I was with my shame. Everything I perceived was shame. Everything was brought unto myself. I was the victim. What else about shame? Being shut down and the Olympics. Again, I was working with the emotional body, not the mental body at all. And my memory would go up. Now, this memory is, I hate to tell you this, just long-term memory. What good is it if it's not in a calm, neutral state to be in the short-term memory that needs to be up? It's the long-term memory goes up. And those are usually related to feelings and future anyway. So I'd bring up my ruminating negative thoughts about, okay, I'm seeing this teacher have this awful look at me right now. The way her tone of voice is directed towards me, I'm remembering and seeing in the past a 3D image of a long-term memory that happened with another teacher. And guess where it went back on again? Me. It was my fault. I wasn't learning correctly. I was not a good student. I wasn't smart. I wasn't good enough. Okay, with all that being said, I've healed all this. No worries anymore. It's all healed. God healed it all. No more anger. I had to look at it though. See, so the point of this checklist for adults is to know what they need to work on, and for children, so you don't get to the point of anger and shame. you can stay in peace and harmony, but you got to be able to recognize when they're experiencing that. So for me, I was more of a hypotonic state. Hello, anybody home? I would be daydreaming constantly. Yep. And then I got like things of, oh, you're an airhead or whatever, you know. So it's adding to the shame, right? Adding more to the shame. But you could see my cardiovascular system, my heart rate went down. My heart rate, believe it or not, and my blood pressure are always still down, which is really interesting to me. And they're like, man, this is what I want to say. This is so important. The sympathetic state, anger, it's hyperactive mind, hyperactive body physically, hyperactive speech. I mean, everything's hyperactive with the sympathetic. The parasympathetic state is with the fight, flight, freeze. Just think about total opposite, hypoactive mind, slow cognitive speed processing, slow in speech, slow in movement, rather lethargic. So people would say, wow, Trisha's such a calm person. Guess where I wasn't calm? In my heart and mind. I was living in shame and I was ruminating on negative thoughts of the past a lot. So that's where actually I wasn't calm at all. It was just harder for people to tell I wasn't in a calm state because I was in the parasympathetic state. Where really the goal again is to have them at a neutral state where the limbic system is working well with the etheric body. And the mental system is working equally and as well with the etheric body. It's total trusting ourselves. That's total equanimity, calm, and harmony, right? And physiologically, everything would really need to be calm too. So anyway, here's the anger shame checklist. Before I go on a little bit longer, because you know this is my thing, is the anger and shame, because nobody looked at it or talked about it with me, and it was growing, and then I got older and I had to look at it. And I'm about to watch the movie tomorrow, The Shack. I don't know, he said a lot of important quotes about if you don't work out these emotions when you're young, they're gonna come out, and that's what happened with me. So, but I worked it all out. We're all good. God healed it all, like I said. But anyway, everybody's born already with some anger and shame into their anger and shame cuts, because that's intergenerational anger and shame. Okay. That hasn't been released to God before you even set foot in school, before you even experiencing whatever you come into conscious to at the age of 3 on, right? You already have some anger and shame inside of you. But then once you start school and the teacher is holding you back and looking at you like you're stupid, and the other kids too, because you can't get the words out. And as I said about that, for me, it was the shame. So it's the slow cognitive speed processing and getting the words out. So that's adding to my shame. See? So this is where I had a propensity for shame. Some people have a propensity for anger. Some people have a propensity in their genetics to be both anger and shame. And then it'd be like this picture where both they vary. They have a variance of what you see. I meant to tell you that. You have a variance of what you see here and here. So basically the whole mind is chaotic, with the variancing of going from a parasympathetic to a sympathetic state constantly. I feel most sad for those people because too, their anger shame checklist, most of them will be filled. Majority of it will be check mark. For me, I had mostly shame check mark and about half the anger check mark when I thought back about when I was young. So what does it look like? Oh, great. Guess what I put? The calming menu that comes back after a person fills it out. That's why it says screen 2 follow-up. So I had chosen the wrong one the whole time. Hold on. Sorry. I'm gonna go back to the Google Drive and find the actual anger shame checklist. You have any questions so far, Laurel?
No,
Anything?
none yet. I'm just writing as fast as I can.
I know,
Learn
and
as
that's
much
why
as
it's
I
on
can.
video too, so you can look back, because I know. The good news is, okay, that's not it. That's hers. That's her specific one. Remember I said you look at, I can look at everybody's one that filled out. Sorry. I just didn't want too much open on my desktop earlier when I was going through stuff. They're looking for screen 2, not follow up, and not cold. There it is. Okay. So we start with sympathetic, anger, fight, flight, flee. Blah. So you don't, so I must have some trigger of anger there. That's what happens when there's some trigger. You'll see it cognitively. With, for me, it was stumbling over my words, but I don't feel like I have anything with anger but that triggered that. But that's what you're looking for, them stumbling over the words when it's talking about, let's say, anger. So anyway, that's gonna be it. That would be a whole nother training. But anyway, so you can fill out this with the parent and with the child. You can fill it or go ahead and send it on to them, but always do this screening or for learning this is with permission that the parent wants you to do it. Now, it's my highest level of evaluation that includes the social emotional. I have 3 levels of evaluations. So of course, if they're paying for the highest level, they know their child is getting the anger shape checklist, learning uniqueness checklist. But again, you can do it with them, with the child, or you can send it on to them and then get it back to you. But I've done both. Okay, do you react when someone is correcting you or giving advice? Defensive. That is always, sometimes, never. Okay, so that is what you see when they're feeling angry, defensive. That one gets marked a lot. Do you speak or do you speak or act without thinking first? Impulsive. Always, sometimes, never. Do you react by breaking or hurting someone or something when you're upset or feel unsafe? Aggressive. Always, sometimes, never. Do you get physical with your classmates, hitting, violence? Do you ever experience a fast pounding heart, sweating, overwhelmed feeling, nervous anxiousness? Do you think of other things during a lesson or activity? Now that's different than daydreaming, okay? Poor focus is staying on task with something that you're doing, but you're not daydreaming. It's okay. So it's just different, and it's different for anger. Do you have difficulty going or staying asleep? Sleep problems. Do you struggle remembering facts or sight words? Now that is another training in itself to say why is it that long-term memory problem for anger. Do you ever make fun of someone to their face or behind their back? Name calling. Do you feel like people might be talking about you or someone is out to get you? Paranoia. That's usually older teens to adults. That's something younger kids haven't gotten to the point of. Do you have lots of energy and can't sit still? Hyperactive. Does your mind race? Hyperactive. Do sounds bother you? Hypersensitive. Does your clothing sometimes bother you? Hypersensitive. Okay, so now I had remember I had half of these marked. My upper half was not marked on sympathetic. None of these upper halves were marked. There's several reasons. Anger was never talked about. We don't get angry in our house. There's nobody talks about, you suppress anger. That's all you do, and that turns to shame. So then I didn't act out with anger because anger wouldn't work for me. Now, if anger works for somebody, they're going to mark all of these and they're going to stay in anger. And remember, they had to have a propensity for anger. My propensity in my family is more shame. So I went to shame because anger wasn't working for me. It wasn't even recognized, blah, blah, blah. And B, I was taught not to get anger or show anger. So environmentally, I wouldn't be allowed to show a lot of those top characteristics of anger. So it went to shame. Okay, so now let's go over shame. The anger cup spills over to the shame cup. You want to know what that means? Didn't mean I didn't have anger. I had aggressive anger and I held it inside. It just so went to shame. Now, shame again frees in the learning environment. Do you ever feel as though you move forward or you can't move forward? Oh, listen to some trigger again at the beginning of my reading. Yes, Laurel. Did you have your hand raised? Do you ever feel as though you can't move forward during and after a lesson, feeling stuck or shut down? Do you break pencils or tear paper? Do you play video games a lot? Any kind of numbing behavior? Numbing for behaviors are different for everybody. And so I stemmed, okay? So I'd pick parts of my skin. I have all kinds of, what do you call it? Scars from picking. Now that's my numbing behavior, and I could put stemming on here. Make sure I put that too. And again, for teenagers, their numbing behaviors get into like alcohol and stuff like that. And so, yes, like I said, I'm open about this. I was a binge drinker because I relied on my looks and how fun I was. And I wanted people to like me because it surely wasn't going to be for my academics, how I stood out to everybody, how smart. This is when I was younger. I know I'm smart now. I can do anything, but there's no reason for me to numb anymore. But anyway, God's healed all that. But anyway, looks different for young kids versus adults. So I would definitely consult with you on that. Okay. And there will be it's almost impossible to name all the things that could go on there. Do you tend to think about yourself and your needs rather than others? Self-centered. Isn't this crazy? So who would know shame more than me? Because my shame cup was probably filled to the top. I was in shutdown. This was about 5 years ago. I was in bed after I get home from work and I was 30 pounds heavier and I had a lot of shame. Didn't think I was good enough. I wasn't smart enough. No, it's just 5 years ago. So when I was looking at these things that I had never looked at before, these emotions of anger and shame, self-centered came up. And I was like, what? I'm not self-centered. I care immensely for people, animals, and nature. How in the world can I be self-centered? But I was. I would manipulate people to get what I want. I remember my learning differences, my neurodivergency has nothing to do about how smart I was. So I'd manipulate people to get what I want. And that was how I was self-centered. And I'd cry on top of a hat, which I remember, if you think about it, this is a lot of crying and whining. I'm going to go over that for shame. A lot of sadness for shame. So, what I wanted to say was, so I'd manipulate people. So now when I see kids that manipulate, which I don't believe kids manipulate, I don't think of kids as being manipulative. I do say one thing, if they have mostly shame, I'll be aware of maybe they are, but I don't, kids, I adore kids to the top. So it's nothing against them. None of these things are against them. It's just more of understanding them. So, what do I want to say about that? So yeah, self-centered. So I was going to say too, that was just a cry of help from me to others. That was just a cry of help, like most of these are. Do you choose not to communicate with people? Shy, so you get introverted. So the one that has shame is more of introverted. But remember the interpersonal skills I told you from the prior checklist for gifts and strengths and interests, it gets complicated. So that gets complicated. But this one is This under shame is definitely shy and introverted. Do you ever choose not to interact with your classmates? Isolating. I did. Do you have problems with phonetic words, sounding out short-term memory? That gets complicated where I start talking about the brain, but trust me, where anger was problems with long-term memory, shame is problems with short-term memory inside the brain, which I can explain another time. Do you need help with tasks? Being very needy. I was extremely needy, full of shame, extremely needy. Remember, I'm constantly, my form of logic is evaluative skills, looking at color, shape, size, dimension, rhyme, meter, pattern, chant, tone. So I would notice if somebody was upset with me. So what did I want to do? Bring them in closer to me. I didn't want people mad at me. Never wanted somebody mad at me. I was too bad being upset with myself, because remember, shame is taking it in yourself. You did this. You're not enough. So unlike anger, the anger is a little bit more ego-based. It will be more of everybody else is wrong, I'm right. You know, you're not going to take it on. You're not going to take it on. But shame, you're going to take it on. You did it. So do you cry easily, whiny and weepy? I was so much shame. I used to whine and cry all the time. I don't cry unless I have compassion for something so much that it has me to the point of tears, but not over everything and anything anymore. Do you revisit thoughts over and over again, ruminating? Oh, that's a big one with shame. Do you avoid people and things? Are you afraid to learn or try new things? This is kind of like the intro and introverted with the people orientation. That's important to know that this could change and they'd just be different. But that's, I have to coach you on that, because this one, you're going against your nature for a lot of these that are marked for shame. Shame is more complicated. And of course, again, in the fact that you can't see it as evident. Shame is in a deeper part of the brain, and it's harder to spot and notice and help. But so you can go against what you are naturally a lot with shame. Do you remember? So another short-term memory thing. Do you daydream? Okay, so remember, anger was focus, where daydreaming and attention are different for shame, it being shame. Do you feel tired and sluggish, hypoactive? Do you have mind work? Okay, so something triggered me that day when I was writing this. Just totally jumbled up these words. Does your mind work slowly, hypoactive? Ooh, I had a big charge on that one, didn't I, with shame? Just reading it back, it's like, yeah, of course I messed up those words. So that was the experience and the thought being triggered of shame directly related to something I had felt this presently or in the past about my mind not working slowly. That caused me to jumble up my words cognitively. Do you want to hold things in your hand or need pressure on your body? Hyposensitive. Okay. Now, remember, if they have majority anger and shame marked, they will vary between what they do. Their mind will be racing 1 second and the next minute be sluggish. Okay. So do I have a majority with anger and shame marked? If you're an adult, yes. Children, no. Remember, children have more of the anger marked, less of the shame marked. The older you get, the more the shame is marked. Do I have people that have a propensity and be mostly shame and mostly anger versus more of that than I do have, they have both of them marked more often. Okay, so stuff like, do you want to have a coach explain these things to you? So in the explanation, you give them from this. That's where you give them the follow-up that I had open earlier, which is a calming menu. And in the calming menu, it also says about how for anger, you need strength. Let me explain this real fast. This is very important, by the way. So the heart and the brain are connected. It's all explained in my part 1. So this is my heart and my brain, by the way. It's all connected. And this is what makes up our mind. Our mind is the heart and the brain. Where is the mind stored? At the thymus is the main center. At the rest, at the cortex at the top of the brain. Okay. So when the frontal lobe's working with the ARES, that's ARES. Is working with the rest, that's ARES. That's highly conscious. You're a highly conscious person. But it's only because of the thymus having equanimity. That is the high heart chakra. That's the upper, that's the vagus nerve chakra. That's above your heart, right? But we represent it with the heart. Okay, so when you have anger here, and you have shame here, okay, you need strength for anger. You need to ask God for strength. And if you're not at that high level of development into religion and you're more spiritual, it might be shame. And the shame people are more, let me put this, the anger people can be known to be more religious. Now their religion can be hyper religious or hypo religious, but they're more based on religion because they want to break down the Bible. They want to get knowledge by breaking something down and bringing it back to the whole. Now, shame is more spiritual orientation, where I had prayed to God for many years. God, make me balanced in spirituality and religion, right? Many, many years. I wanted to be balanced in this area. This is whole picture. This is going into the parts, right? Now, for anger, you need strength because you got to look at your anger. God's got to search your heart and mind and help you to see your anger. Have you ever seen an angry person want to look at their anger? I personally have not. Now, for shame, you need empathy. Remember, so remember, I'm gonna check my time. I have a class in 9 minutes. This person who is shame, it's all introverted. It's you caused this. It's all inside yourself. So of course you need empathy, not so much for others, but for yourself. So then you can give it to others. So for the first time in my life, when God helped me look at my anger and my shame, and I got it healed with strength and empathy. In the religious terms, we would say this is mercy. Look at mercy, and this is grace, right? When I was able to have mercy and grace, that I was equalized and I'm harmonious with God, with myself, and with others. Okay, so, but it goes a little bit deeper. This anger and shame in time can go to something else that I haven't covered yet. In time now, it's a higher level of emotion, hatred and grief. This is probably where, no, this wasn't probably, this is where I was. Never having to look at my anger and shame before, ever. That I had already developed hatred and grief. For hatred, you need, courage. And if you're a religious person with me, that's might. You need might, okay? But courage, okay? Now, if it's grief, you need compassion. And if you are a religious person like me, you get it. What? I'm spiritual religious. I already stated that. Did you have authority? Okay, authority over yourself, then you can be working and having compassion for others. So, this is where I have a different checklist for adults to check out hatred and grief, to see replace with courage and compassion that you won't see, because keep that one to myself, and I will personally work one-on-one to go over. If you get an adult person who you're going to work with, before you tutor them, know where they are on their hatred and grief, because this is going to tell you how they're going to learn best to get calm and where their background lies in these emotions that affect every part of their learning. Not just learning with you, I'm talking about all life learnings, like all our life lessons. So good news is, like I said, I gave my heart and my mind to God. So somewhere in the last 5 years, if I have to say, I got born again, probably I was rebaptized about 3 years ago. I'm living in harmony and peace, and I got power of God, all these gifts, and through visiting His Word, that it's healed all this anger and shame. So now I feel like I can go to God and look Him in the eye one day, and I would be blameless and pure. So speaking of blameless and pure, this side is looking at releasing the anger and hatred, replacing it with mercy and light. This would be having a pure heart on this side, and this would be a blameless mind. Where, remember too, if you're filled with, when I talked about, when we're talking about shame, it was, I did not have a blameless mind. I was the victim to everything and everyone. And and then nobody could teach me because I was the victim of you, but I was always open-minded. Don't get me wrong. I've always been open-minded, but I did not have a blameless mind filled with the shame and grief. What else I want to say about that? I guess that's it. Any questions, Laurel?
I mean, a ton of questions. But I mean, just
If you don't want to say it on camera, I could individually work with you if you want, because this is a tough topic, and I think that it needs to be addressed. And people, we don't need to ignore it any longer. We're passing these things down through our DNA. It's being expressed in our DNA, and the genomes of anger and shame. They're holding these energies, and they're affecting on how we learn and how we relate to people, and it's every part of ourselves is being affected. If you wanted
I mean, this stuff is, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean,
that makes me happy. I mean, from you, that makes me happy. So yeah, we can meet individually. And I'm going to turn off the recording because I have 4 minutes and I want to get it onto my desktop. So let me do that.